Morning, everybody, and welcome to another Sunday here at First Unitarian Society. But it's far from just another Sunday. It's the Sunday of Leap Day weekend, and I know that gives all of you immense joy. It does me. It's also the weekend when we're leaping into generosity as we launch our annual stewardship campaign. But first, again, welcome to First Unitarian Society, where independent thinkers gather in a safe, nurturing environment to explore issues of social, spiritual, and ethical significance as we try to make a difference in this world. I'm Steve Goldberg, a proud, sweet-smelling member of this congregation, and I'd like to I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to any guests, visitors, or newcomers. If this is your first time at First Unitarian Society, I think you'll find that it's a special place. And if you'd like to learn more about our special buildings, we'll be conducting a guided tour after today's service. Just gather over here by the windows. Following the service, we'll take good care of you. And speaking of taking care of each other, this is the perfect time to silence those pesky electronic devices that you absolutely will not need for the next hour, because instead of paying attention to your phones, you'll be paying attention to today's service, which I know will touch your heart, stir your spirit, and trigger one or two new thoughts on this Leap Day weekend. We're really glad that you're here, and I'd like to invite you now to join in a moment of centering silence so we can be fully present with each other this morning.
For our community gathered here, for the Spirit that called us together and drew us to this place, we give thanks this day.
For moments we have shared with others, for times when we have reached out across barriers of distance and fear, for times when others have reached out to us, for moments when we have discovered another along our path, we give thanks this day.
For this community of celebration and growth, introspection and solitude, for those moments of that peace which passes all understanding, we give thanks this day.
For our gathering together out of distant places, for our weaving together out of many separate selves, this hour of celebration and worship, we give thanks this day. I invite you to rise in all the ways that you do as we join our voices together to spark our chalice. The words are printed in your order of service. Together we say, O light of life, be kindled again in our hearts as we meet together this morning to celebrate the joy of human community, seeking a wholeness that extends beyond ourselves. We will continue with hymn number 347. Let's sing the first and the third verse of Gather the Spirit.
Good morning. Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks. gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion, and strength, gather to celebrate once. Verse 3, please. Gather the Spirit growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun, winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy, now and then gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again.
Before you take a seat, I invite you to turn towards each other and offer a greeting this morning.
Hello. Hey, good morning. I invite anyone who would like to come closer for our story. Come on up. Good morning. It's going to be lovely today, sunny and in the 50s. Anybody got some fun plans? You like the cold? Might be alone in that at this point of the year. It'll get cold again. It's only March. It will. It'll get cold again soon. Good morning. Oh, first thing, I've got this box. Okay, I need your guesses. All right, listen, it's not very heavy. Listen. It's yarn. Oh, it's yarn. Whoa. You knew it was yarn. You saw the book. That's right. I have a magical box of yarn. Our book is called Extra Yarn. You have this book at your house. I love this book. I love anything that deals with yarn, in case you didn't know that already. So our story is Extra Yarn, and it starts on a cold afternoon in a cold little town where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys. Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. So she went home and knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. So she knit a sweater for Mars, too. See her dog in a matching sweater? But there was still extra yarn. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." And Annabelle said, "You're just jealous." "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out he was. And even after she'd made a sweater for Nate and his dog and for herself and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet," said Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone. Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Then I'll knit one for everyone," Annabelle said. They won't need to turn around. Impossible, said Mr. Norman. You can't. But it turned out she could. And she did. Even for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had extra yarn. So she knit sweaters for her mom and dad, and for Mr. Pendleton, and for Mrs. Pendleton, and for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louis. She made sweaters for everyone except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow up to his knees. No sweater for me, thanks, said Mr. Crabtree. So she made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And even then, Annabelle still had extra yarn. She made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats and for other animals too. Soon, people thought, soon, Annabelle is going to run out of yarn. But it turned out she didn't. So Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. The house, the bird has a sweater, the bird's house, the mailbox. And look at this, things began to change in that little town. Is it still just the color white as snow and soot of the chimneys? No. Do you see all the colors, Elliot? Look at that. Look at all those colors in town now. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn. And people came to visit from around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hand. One day, an archduke who was very fond of clothes sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. Little girl, said the archduke, I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I am willing to offer you $1 million. No, thank you, said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The archduke's mustache twitched. $2 million, he said. Annabelle shook her head. No, thanks. 10 million, shouted the archduke. Take it or leave it. Leave it, said Annabelle. I won't sell the yarn. And she didn't. So that night, the archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house. And they stole the box and took it to the archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea back to his castle. The archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his best chair, and he took out the box and he lifted its lid and he looked inside and what do you think? Bum, bum, bum. It's empty. There's no yarn in that box. His mustache quivered, it shivered, it trembled. The archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted, Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again. But, do you see the box? Where's the box going? Do you see it over here? Where's Nolan? Where's the box going? It's going right back to the girl. It goes right back to Annabelle. It traveled all the way back to her. There's the box. She's getting it out of the water. And the archduke said she'd never be happy again, right? It turned out she was. See that? The tree, and then look at our last page. There's 2 kitty cats and 2 dogs and a tree, all wrapped in yarn. So what was the deal with that box? Was that a magical box of yarn? Maybe. Do you believe in magic? Yes, no, some. Well, is this a magical box of yarn? If I get rid of all this yarn, is it going to fill back up? No, but can we believe in magic? I think there's definitely magic in the world. So I think about teachers. I think about your teachers. So many of us start school, right? We go to kindergarten, right? And we may not know how to read. We may not know how to count. And what do teachers help us do? They help us learn things. And they help us feel safe. And they help us make friends. I think that's magic. What about the place across the street? What about the children's hospital? We can go in there and be really, really sick, and they help us get better. I think that's magic. And I think we've got magic right here in this community, because you know the magical thing about us? We always have enough, and then we always have more to share, right? We can do amazing, magical things around here, and there's always more and more for us to share with others. And you all are a huge part of that magic that we have in this community. So thank you for listening. Drew's going to teach us a new song. So we're going to sing it once, and then you can leave for classes. So hang out a second, because we're going to get to clap our hands together.
Okay, I know not all of you can see me. I'm up here. Can you see my hands? All you need to see is my hands. Okay, good. That's going to work then. So I'm going to sing this new song through. You listen real carefully and try to learn it the first time. You won't. It's okay to just sing something wrong when it's your turn. If you're too nervous about being wrong, just clap with me when I clap, okay? And I'm really actually just talking to the adults as well as the kids. So sing if you know it. And sing out even louder if you don't. It goes like this. You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy, and all the trees of the fields will clap their hands. And all the trees of the field will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands. The trees of the field will clap their hands while you go out with joy. That's kind of a simple song. If you want to sing some part, all, most, or none of it, that's fine. But at least do the clapping. Ready? Let's go. You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy, and all the trees of the fields will clap their hands. And all the trees of the fields will clap their hands. The trees of the fields will clap their hands. The trees of the fields will clap their hands while you go out with joy.
This morning, as we move from generosity as a month-long exploration of all the various ways that it is a part of our life, we invite you to practice that sense of generosity as we move into our stewardship campaign. And one of the things that we learned in the last month is that all deep, abiding, and sustainable generosity tends to come from a sense of gratitude. And so our worship team thought about what you have told us about this community that you are grateful for again and again. And each of us chose one of those things that you have told us as a space of gratitude for us to explore briefly with you. As is true of all of what we call our collage services, in all of the things that we choose, we are inviting you to find your place of connection as we move into this month and explore from your own life experience. And so I chose something that you have told me from the very beginning is important to you within this community, and that I have experienced has a particular breadth and depth that has been rare in my experience in other congregations to be quite so outstanding. And that is the particular ways that you explore spiritual development and practice it. Over and over again, you make that an important part of what you do together. For decades now, there is a legacy of what happens in worship being a particularly rich exploration of the full breadth of what it means to be a spiritual person. From your clergy to your religious professionals to your lay people, you have really explored deeply both in worship and religious education. But there's more than that. There are so many ways that you explore and practice, from your centering prayer group to your Japanese crane meditation group, your Insight Buddhist meditation and Thursday meditation groups, and then add to that your group that does spiritual books, your journey circles and other small group ministries, your annual retreat, your adult and children's religious education classes. All of those things invite you to explore more deeply what it means to turn to the core that connects us with the deepest part of ourselves and the deepest part of life itself. And many of you believe that part of what has helped you be so deeply connected with spiritual exploration was a program that lasted for many years here at FUS, the Quest program. And I know that many of you mourn that it is no longer actively shared with the congregation. But the thing is, the essence of the Quest program is very much alive and well. Almost all of those groups that I just listed off started during the Quest program, and many of them were begun by alum that were part of that Quest program. And in our ongoing programming, we are very intentional about taking what made Quest so deeply meaningful. That invitation to share in small groups with each other and explore and build trust with one another, to be able to really delve into what matters most in your life. That still lives on in our journey circles. They really are intentionally trying to take the essence of that Quest experience and elongate it throughout the year, asking you to engage in the worship themes in a meaningful way, to build trust with one another, to find your own voice in the midst of that, as well as practice listening wholeheartedly and open-mindedly to each other. That ongoing work makes all the difference in this congregation. It invites you to find your own way of being present here. It invites you to feel more connected with what goes on here. It invites you, each in your own way, to find your own way to be a leader within this congregation and beyond. And so we celebrate the strength of our spiritual growth programming here at FUS. That shared ministry of spiritual development that is the core of why communities of faith exist in the first place. That quality of engaging the body, the mind, and the heart in the most meaningful questions of life is a legacy for your spirit of generosity on every level: time, talent, and treasure. And it supports us in this present moment and into the future. So in a time when people in this world tend to feel divided and alienated, I celebrate that we hold space for connections that ask us to think about the core of what it is that holds us together as human beings on this planet. In a time of incredible anxiety, I am grateful for the opportunities to connect with the heart of our being. That is the place where we find our most sustainable courage. And when there is so much noise and upheaval that would distract us from what is so essential, I honor that we make space for quiet. And in that quiet, the voice of compassion, reason, and love itself may speak. So for just a moment, as you're seated, I invite you to join me in a moment that gives us a chance to experience that sense of deep connection and quiet through music. I invite you to turn to 1009, and we will join in an experience of going through the song. There are 3 parts to it. We'll all start with a drone. I will hold down the drone. Drew will move to the melody, the center section, and then Karin will move to the descant. You are welcome to join in when you will, or let it be a moment of meditation for you. But may we join together in just a moment of that deeper connection. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out.
When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Choirs breathe in peace and breathe out love every time we open our mouths to sing. In Latin, the word in, which is spelled I-N, means either in or into. And the root spir means either breath or spirit. So to take in a breath is to literally inspire. But to be inspired, or to inspire someone else, that's to send the Spirit into, or to receive the Spirit in. Historically, the church did the thinking for its parishioners. Aren't we glad those days are in the past now? And the idea of spirit was a substitute for meaning. So when singers breathe in, we breathe in air we need to make our vocal folds vibrate. And when we breathe out a song which has meaning. The hope, of course, is that the congregation will then take in that meaning, that spirit. Inspiration all around. Prior to coming to FUS, I worked as a church musician for 8 congregations in a variety of faith traditions. UU, UCC, which stands for Unitarians Considering Christ. Disciples of Christ, Methodist, Episcopal, Lutheran, a Catholic church, and a Catholic cathedral, which are 2 different things. If you count one-off gigs, you can even add in Greek Orthodox, Baptist, Jewish, Presbyterian, and probably some others that were weddings that I didn't know what the faith tradition was. No matter the faith, the choirs at these places are always open to anyone who cared to join. Most did not even require an audition. Choirs are full of volunteers. And in fact, most church and synagogue choirs are entirely volunteer, and that's the case here at FUS. Singing in a worship choir is an act of contribution in and of itself. Now, I'm not trying to recruit you, but I do invite you to recruit yourself, of course. Whether you're a visitor or have been coming for years, something first drew you to FUS. And that something may be different for each of us. And if you have come back, then something must have brought you back. You get something out of coming to FUS. If you were asked what first brought you here, you would have an answer. If you were asked what brings you back, you would also have an answer. Those questions are important, but I have another, and you may be guessing that that question is, now what do you give to FUS? But it's not. Or maybe your guess is, how would you like to join the choir? But it's not. Although you may each think of the answer to that question on your own. My question is, what do you give other than money to FUS? I'm going to challenge you today to think about your stewardship as a portfolio. Hear me out. What if you considered your monetary contributions? Doug mentioned time, talent, and treasure. What if you considered your treasure as only one way to contribute? And I hope to convince you of the important difference between contributions of treasure and contributions of time and talent. Every organization needs to pay the bills. I'm not talking about that right now. Financial resources are greatly needed, but so is your contribution of time and talent. And being involved in a small group ministry like a music ensemble at FUS is one way to contribute your time and talent. But if you don't want to be involved in music, I'm going to say something controversial now, then we don't want you involved in music. You need to contribute your time and talent to something you are excited about doing for the society. I'm not trying to get you to be in a choir. You don't have to be in a choir to be part of the chorus of life, but be part of the chorus of life.
Were you there that day? Reverend Doug and I were leading a service entitled, "Who is Our Neighbor?" And I was sharing a story with the children during the message for all ages. The book was about two neighbors. One was Jewish, the other was Muslim, named Yafa and Fatima. And we got to this line in the book where it said, Yafa prayed in the synagogue and Fatima prayed in the mosque. They both loved God, and they both loved to follow God's way. And while I was up there getting ready to turn the page to the next spread, this 3 or 4-year-old child looks up at me and she sighs and she says, I miss God. Well, I was rather taken aback, as I am at times when words of wisdom come from such young ones. All I could think of to say was, yes, God is complicated. One of the aspects of this congregation that I love and that I see other people loving are the opportunities to interact with people of many different generations. There are so few places in society lately where we have the chance for young people to talk to teens, and for teens to talk to elders, and for elders to talk to young adults, and for young adults to talk to middle-aged folks. Here at FUS, we actually do have that opportunity for singles and partners and families of all shapes and sizes. And we help our very youngest to know that they are cared for by an entire community. As the African proverb purportedly goes, it takes a village to raise a child. And FUS is one such village. The children's religious education program here is no small part of that village, for it has nearly 350 registered young people. It has nearly 90 teachers and over 60 parent volunteers, not to mention the 8 teenagers who provide childcare for our very youngest in the nursery. I am grateful for these structured CRE classes that help our children and youth make connections with one another and make connections with adults who are not in their family, who they learn to trust. These opportunities to make relationships within and across the generations is definitely worth something worth celebrating. Now, I would love to have a conversation with that kiddo, the one who missed God, to find out what she meant. What was she thinking about? What was she missing? So if you see her, let her know I'm looking for her. I have a lot to learn from her.
These are the words of Margaret Kipe. The journeys of our lives are never fully charted. There come to each of us deserts to cross, barren stretches where the green edge on the horizon may be our destination, or an oasis on our way, or a mirage that beckons only to leave us lost. When fear grips the heart or despair bows the head, may we bend as heart and head lead us down to touch the ground beneath our feet. May we scoop some sand into our hands and receive what the earth would teach us. It holds the warmth of the sun when the sun has left our sight, as it holds the cool of the night when the stars have faded. Hidden among its grains are tiny seeds, at rest and waiting, dormant yet undefeated. Desert flowers, they endure. moistened by our tears and by the rains which come to end even the longest drought. They send down roots and they bloom. May we believe in those seeds and in the seeds within us. May we remember in our dry seasons that we too are desert flowers. Now I remember the first time I visited the desert over 20 years ago now, when my sister moved to Tucson. Coming from Pennsylvania, that landscape was unlike anything I had ever seen. I never knew there were so many shades of brown and orange and red, and how they could all change and seem to dance as the light shifted and moved. I remember thinking that it was quite absurd that there were things living in that place, with so much sun and so little water, so little green, and so many other shades of earth. We visited the Sonoran Desert Museum, and I was in awe of how that unbelievably beautiful place was teeming with life, with reptiles and birds and flowers. There were desert flowers. Flowers that had set down roots in the harshest of places and learned how to bloom. The image stuck with me because all of us have experienced these desert times. These times when the world shifts under our feet, when loss and despair settle into our hearts, when we wonder how we will figure out how to wake, to move, to live again. These are desert times, barren stretches filled with fear, anxiety, and dread. One of the most difficult pieces of the work I do here with all of you is when I see someone out in the community at a store or the library and they tell me that they've stopped coming here to this place because their life took a turn or they felt lost and they decided it was best to stay away. I'll be back when things are better, they always say. And it took me a few tries to learn how to respond. I used to say things like, I understand, come back when you can. And now I say, please, come back now. Don't wait. Our community was made for these times. This is the time when you don't turn away. When you come in closer and you say, I need help. This has happened, and I need to be with those who will listen and support. Love me just the way I am in this moment with whatever has happened. That is the beauty of communities such as ours. We come here to practice and live out who we want to be. People who gather in peace, gather in strength, gather in empathy and kindness and vulnerability and connection and risk and caring. One of the largest supports in this work, and something I love about our life together, is our lay ministry program. Our lay ministers foster a sustaining sense of community within the congregation through a ministry of care. They are there for those who are experiencing those desert times, times of change and loss and illness, sometimes offering practical assistance in transitions. They share in moments of celebration and happiness. They reach out to those who are new and those whom we miss. Mostly, they listen. They listen to the stories of your lives. They discuss the complexities of this life we share. They walk with those who are hurting. They share in situations that require human kindness. It is a way that they are bringing more empathy into our world, remembering our connections, holding on to that which binds us, strengthening each other and reminding us that we are not alone. Desert flowers. They endure through the most difficult of times. Moistened by tears, Margaret said, they send down roots and they bloom. May we believe in those seeds and in the seeds within us. May we remember that this is our way of being together, turning toward one another in those desert times, calling on the lay ministers or this community of care and support, living this life as the desert flowers we truly are, helping each and all of us to bloom.
So this month, as we invite you to leap into that spirit of generosity, what are your places of deep gratitude about this community? Where are your places of connection? Where are your places of longing? What is all of that asking of you now? Every week, as we move into the offering, a similar discernment practice occurs. What gifts has life given us? And what do we know of life's need right now? And how may we respond in love, in generosity? May we know that this week, Centro Hispano is the recipient of our outreach offering. 50% will go to help them in their ongoing work with the Latinx community to make lives better in this community and beyond. You can read more about their work in the red floors. May we be inspired by a spirit of gratitude and generosity as the morning offering is given and received.
We join together each week with minds that are open, hearts that are welcoming, and arms that are embracing. We lift up those who are touched by sadness, by illness, by worry, by loneliness. And we pray they find comfort, hope, and healing strength in this community and the larger community. We celebrate those whose lives are whole and well. May they share their strength with those in need and find warmth and love in the sharing of their spirit. This week, we remember all those who are impacted by gun violence, especially our neighbors in Milwaukee. And we take a moment to silently reflect on our own lives and all those beloved in it who need our thoughts and healing prayers. May we remember that we are a part of a web of life that makes us one with all humanity, one with all the universe. May we be grateful for the miracle of life that we share and the hope that gives us the power to care, to remember, and to love.
So as we leap into generosity this weekend and launch our stewardship campaign, we want to thank volunteers for their generosity in making sure that these services go smoothly. Talking about our lay minister, Ann Smiley. Our greeter this morning has been Katie Beam. And then the ushers for this real difficult crowd have been Gal Bliss, Liza Monroe, and Dick Goldberg. Hospitality and coffee are being prepared and served by Eleni Musarid Varga and her entire family. They've adopted the hospitality hour. Tom Heine is handling questions and answers at our welcome table. Mary Savage is responsible for making sure that the pulpit palms are properly watered and green. And our tour guide is the ever-reliable John Powell. A couple other announcements. We know that we're going through a ministerial transition, and there is an update available from a representative from the Board of Trustees. Her name is Creel Ziering. Creel, are you here? Raise your hand. Creel will be at the table in the Commons during the fellowship hour to answer any questions you might have about the ministerial search and that transition. And speaking of transitions, remember next weekend to spring forward and turn your clocks ahead 1 hour. Don't be late for the 9 o'clock. And the final announcement relates to our stewardship campaign, our Leap into Generosity. This is an exciting time for First Unitarian Society. We're going through a very important and high-gain transition as a congregation, and the stewardship campaign is a big part of that. Because of you, and because of your participation in the stewardship campaign, we are able to support the things we value at First Unitarian Society. And our ministerial team, Kelly and Doug and Karen and Drew, listed for us the things that they value about FUS, triggering, I think, in our own minds some thoughts about what we value about FUS. And because of our participation in the stewardship campaign, we are able to support the things that we value, such as these services, the programs for families, the youth education programming, our world-class music program, our community outreach, where we've established a well-deserved reputation as a major strategic player in the quality of life here in our community, and our ability to make this a thriving spiritual home for people of all ages. As Doug mentioned, when he looks at other congregations around the country with which he's familiar, he sees by comparison at FUS here in Madison the largest variety of opportunities for people to participate and interact with each other, learn and grow and thrive together. And as Kelly mentioned in her Story for All Ages, the kids of our congregation, they are both our magic and our extra yarn. And who wouldn't want to support that part of our future? So it will take a little less than $1.2 million in our stewardship campaign to make all these things happen and continuing to happen. But I've got good news. We're halfway there. We've already received pledges exceeding $550,000 in our $1.17 million campaign. Most of those from about 239 sustaining stewards, including many in this room, who last year made a multi-year commitment in the stewardship campaign, so that their contribution will continue year after year. And then we also have received generous gifts from other givers who have pledged and committed even before we launched this leap into generosity. So we've got some nice momentum going, some critical mass, and that's not a Catholic term, but a really good start. And we're going to be celebrating our progress every weekend, every Saturday and Sunday in the month of March. So you'll have to get used to me for the next few weeks being up here. And we'll be providing a prize every weekend for somebody who has participated in the stewardship campaign. That prize will be a gift card at local restaurants. I can't tell you the name of the restaurants, but their initials are Food Fight. And mark your calendars for the Because of You celebration, which will mark the end of our stewardship campaign, Friday, March 27. And you can pick up information about that in the Commons. You can also get some candy in the Commons. And the party on March 27th is a family party. We want kids to be there because, again, they are our magic and our extra yarn. And there'll be activities for the kids. There'll be pizza for everybody. So we need you to RSVP. Let us know you're coming so we know how much pizza to provide. So thank you very much for helping us leap into generosity. It's going to take all of us, but I know we're going to make all these great things happen.
Thank you, Steve. And as we passed each other, I realized you really do smell quite sweet today. Let us join our voices one last time as we rise in all the ways that we do to sing hymn number 354, We Laugh, We Cry. We'll sing verses 1 and 4, the outside verses today. We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give. We have our thoughts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an and. Verse 4, we seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to make sense of what we find. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a joy being together. And in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see, even to question truly is an answer.
It is our work, shared with each other in covenant, that creates and sustains this beloved community.
We extinguish our chalice, but its light lives on in the directions we have chosen today.
The light of this faith lives on in us, together, in our hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits. Amen, and blessed be. I invite you to take your seat again and receive one more gift of music together in worship.